Hello all. I realise I've been slacking this week on the video front, but I've been doing other stuff, so that's why. Closing in on 6,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which will be nice if we can get there. Be lovely to get there by the end of the year, so, you know, find a video, share it, tell people I'm worth subscribing to, because I normally update more often than I have. So, you know, there's that. It would be lovely if some more people would sub to my Patreon, even if it's just for like a buck a month. You can find the links below. Because the reason I've been busy this week is having to reapply for part of my disability payments. And that's usually a rigmarole, and I usually have to argue and appeal all the way to tribunal, and then they eventually give in. So, you know, a little bit of additional financial security would be lovely. After all, I do make quite a lot of stuff, which you might appreciate, and if my Patreon gets back over $200, I'll start producing Patreon only stuff again. So, you know, there's that to look forward to. Right, comments wise, not a lot, because I didn't do a lot of videos, so you know it's coming. You know it's coming. The Kalergi plan. So some guy called Troops said, "Do you have no shame? I come back here every time something happens. It doesn't matter if it's France being burnt to the ground by Algerians, or an Italian island having a complete demographic change within 24 hours due to an African invasion. You always come up with some BS excuse. France deserves to be burnt to the ground because racist police. 8,000 is only 0.2% of Italy's total population. You should have been alive when the Vikings invaded Britain. The Vikings only raped 0.5% of the British population, and while they did take 12,000 women back to Scandinavia to become sex slaves, that's only 0.8% of the current population. Chill out." Grimm, circa 860 AD, which I thought was actually quite funny for a racist piece of shit, but yeah. Yeah, you see excuses when what's actually happening is that you're not telling the truth or backing up what you're saying. France didn't burn to the ground. It's still there. The disruption was located in Paris, not France as a whole, and they do have a racist police force, which tends to lead to people reacting, shall we say. An Italian island hasn't had complete demographic change within 24 hours. It had 6,000 people pitch up on the island due to an extremely rare confluence of circumstances, including weather and various other things that aren't down to anybody's control. But it wasn't an invasion. Yes, these were migrants. Yes, the island normally only has a population of 5,000, but lots of people pitch up there because it's a place they can get to via boats and so on. Those people will then disperse throughout Italy and throughout Europe as a whole. Yeah, it's a problem, but it's rare. That's still a tiny fraction of Italy's total population, and it hasn't changed the demography of the island. And so it goes with everything you stupid bastards bring to my attention. Jack Napier says, "So let me get this straight. Italy is literally in a state of emergency right now due to Africans invading them by boat. Yet this fat, washed-up ex-game developer that looks like he hasn't left his basement in 10 years says everything is fine. Italy is not in a state of emergency right now. That island has declared an emergency to deal with all the people that have washed up there, and they're doing everything they can to help and take them in. So, you know, there's that. Nobody's invading anybody. Fat, I don't know, I'm a bit chonkier than I'd like to be, but fat seems a bit much. I don't have a basement. They're not that common here in the UK. And everything is pretty much fine. Or it would be more fine if we operated in a more humane manner, but hey ho, there you go. Drew Cosmo says, "Isn't that what they would tell us, though? Oh, that's not real, silly. They're here for love matches. Explains why it's all only young men," which is complete misrepresentation of what I was talking about. But yeah, in a more global world with easier communication and travel, people do fall for each other across international lines, and we keep them apart because someone drew a line on a map. It does seem a bit silly. Lean 271, also about Italy. They seem to really have a bee in their bonnet about Italy. Italy has done 8k Africans. It was 6k. Just arrived in Lampedusa, an island with 6k inhabitants, within 36 hours. A complete demographic change within 36 hours. A literal invasion by so many thousands of African men. Let the rape and killing begin. Again, not what's happened. I'm not going to bother reiterating. A common comment from racists on that is one repeated by Boss Bully Boy, who says this didn't age well. Didn't it? There's still no evidence of any Kalergi plan or anything that you people say, so I don't know why you think it didn't age well. Lucas07933 says, so this guy clearly finds race mixing exotic and doesn't care if white people become extinct. Also telling us there is no great replacement. What a twat. Which I can't help but notice doesn't actually contain any evidence to the contrary, or any arguments, really. Yeah, people get attracted to other races. It's a thing that happens. We either tend to get attracted to people with similarities to ourselves or differences to ourselves. This is known, Khaleesi. White people are under no threat whatsoever of becoming extinct, and it wouldn't matter anyway if we interbred with everybody else and became one big human whole. I don't understand why you would think that it would. It's the lineages, it's the memes that we pass on that matter far more. So I don't know. Big fella Mike says, it doesn't matter if this was a plan or agenda or not. He spent his whole life trying to make this a reality, and many other absolutely disgusting Jews want it. Lamau. This is what arguing semantics does. It forces you to be blind to the truth. What truth? You've offered no evidence whatsoever. Kalergi wanted the United Europe, and he spent his life trying to make that happen. But what does that have to do with anything else? Yeah, go stick your head in a pig. On the Flash Gordon Savage Worlds review, K-Mike says, I have similar feelings towards Savage Worlds as I do towards the whole 3.x D20 game lines of the noughts. They're too heavy on feats/edges that are a prerequisite for the ones you really want to take. It's not a bad system, it just doesn't do anything well enough to stand out. With which I would agree. Savage Worlds has a different cant to the D20 game lines, though. It is better for certain things. It has some flavour, but then they've tried to make it a generic system, which I don't think it really is. So I think maybe that's the problem. Matt Shaw says, I've used Savage Worlds a lot. I like it, but I definitely agree it doesn't fit everything. As a system, I'd say it's more generic action than just generic, and it needs customizing to the setting to work well. Out of interest, what issues did you have with running it? So we had an absolute hoot running it for Deadlands and Deadlands Wasted West, and it worked fantastically for that kind of stuff. Encouraging the players to play up their flaws, all of that sort of thing. So in its incarnation for Deadlands, loved it. Expected to have a similar experience taking Savage Worlds, the genericized version of Deadlands' system, really, and using it for other things. But it just never quite worked. I tried to run a mecha game with it, small-scale mecha. That just didn't really work. And that's the same experience, that just it hasn't been satisfying. It hasn't had the strengths that Deadlands had using it for some reason, and it's hard to figure out why, but it's been consistently disappointing. Liberal Hyena, I mentioned Ignition City in that review. So does Ignition City start in World War II? I remember a Warren Ellis sci-fi miniseries that had hurricanes in the first issue, at least before spaceships were introduced. I may not have read it all, which is an unfortunate habit of mine with Mr. Ellis's work. I only remember the first 3 issues of Transmetropolitan, but not always my fault. I borrowed a graphic novel of his from the library. I don't remember the title, but it was set in space, of which the last page had been ripped out. I still haven't finished it. I think in further comments we discovered that was Ministry of Space, and someone probably tore out the last page because it had a plot twist in it. It's not much of a plot twist. You haven't missed much from missing the last page, really. Both Ignition City and Ministry of Space start in World War II. In Ministry of Space, it's the British who execute Project Paperclip, and the Americans who were sent to get the Nazi rocket scientists end up getting bombed. Ignition City starts with the Martians invading during World War II on the side of the Nazis. So, those are the 2 things. Will in New Haven says you wouldn't need to carry anything around if you bought it on PDF, which is also cheaper. I realise that some Luddites won't even review games on PDF, but that's another matter. I introduced a hard copy only policy because otherwise I forget to review things on PDF because they're not there staring at me. I do get things on PDF, but usually only supplementary material for things where I need something particular. I would rather have the hard copy, especially these days when people keep changing the PDFs. On an old video about the He-Man Lore Bible, which is fantastic, you should look it up. Shaz Blaster says, who else is here trying to homebrew a He-Man themed D&D campaign? I wouldn't do a D&D campaign for that. I would probably use Fate, and I would make one of the traits / powers, probably both, whatever special ability that particular character had, and I would make it double strength to normal. So He-Man might have a trait super strong and a power super strong as well, which would give him +4 instead of +2, and then Ram Man and whoever else would have it. But something like Fate I think would work a lot better, or possibly Cartoon Action Hour. Mark Stevens says, could we have the most boring voice to tell the story? Horrible choice, made it unwatchable. Sorry, I did listen back to it a bit, and I was putting inflection into my voice, so I don't know what your issue is. Apparently my voice is boring. Other people have complimented it and said they want me to do audiobooks, so I don't know. On the Dragonbane review, Matt Lauder says, this game is fantastic, and the weird complaints and shit-slinging in the comments here and the dirty fingernails in the video are really off-putting. I think I gave it a reasonable score. People are allowed not to like things, and as to my fingernails, for fuck's sake, I wash my hands before I do these reviews. I have greasy skin, which means my skin doesn't age as fast as other people's, but it does oxidize quickly. So, yeah, my fingernails look grabby rather quickly, plus I have very pale skin, so the slightest bit of darkness or colour change ends up looking grubby. But that is a pointless bitch fest, and you can go fuck yourself. Back on Indestructible Boy Picks a Fight, and I must point out that, remember, we had a rapprochement and buried the hatchet a bit, but my pedantry would not let this pass. Cthulhu Patan says, who is the Cyclopean homunculus? Now, you meant, mono-eyed, but Cyclopean actually means gigantic, as in, the Cyclops was a giant, and so Cyclopean refers to things of gigantic size. So, when Lovecraft describes Cyclopean ruins in some deep cave somewhere, he is describing them as gigantic, not as having one eye, just so you know. On the Alice Cooper video, Razor Wrecker says, sad you have to be so careful with your words living in England and Australia because you allowed your guns to be taken by a far leftist, atheist, corrupt, fascist, commie government, but good on you for standing up for free speech and common sense morality. My common sense morality would say these people aren't doing anybody any harm, so let's just leave them alone. England, I don't know about Australia, but England has an official state religion, Anglican Christianity. The Conservative Party here, the right-wing party, is particularly right-wing and are the most successful Conservative Party in the world, getting elected far more often than they really should have. Corrupt, I'll give you. Fascist and communist, you're going to have to pick one there because you can't be both. And I'm not sure how having guns helps in this particular incidents. I don't really see people starting a civil war over Alice Cooper's right to be mildly confused about transgender issues. And I don't see how having a gun protects my speech at all, really. I mean, am I supposed to shoot anyone who disagrees with me? I don't know. But, yeah, like I said, I was a bit slack this week, at least on the video front. So, yeah, not a lot there. But I will see you soon.
Greetings, Jerkian warrior elite. Know this, that your existence is down to the orders of our portly potentate, and that without him you would not exist. Your very conception in the clone tanks of Clonius, the cloning planet, is ordained by his obese omnipotence, and from that very moment you owe him your life, your servitude, and your loyalty. To be a soldier in the glorious army of the Jerkian Empire is perhaps the best fate that can befall lowly matter in this universe. The Jerkian Empire is all-conquering, all-powerful, has the best uniforms, the most advanced weaponry, and the greatest leader the galaxy has ever known. Nothing can stand in our way, and you, even as lowly as you are, can die knowing that you are serving a far greater cause and a far superior people to any other in the universe.
Invaders is a comedy game of mishap and alien adventure, where you play the part of diminutive and comedically and epically incompetent alien invaders. You can get it at post-mort.com and drive-through RPG.